Hey guys, quick note before starting. There's a hurricane that's hitting Connecticut where Rob is. So Free Voice will be next weekend. There's no point in trying to do something for Free Voice, then Rob could be knocked out and lose power. We'll do it next weekend. Hey guys, it's Matt. This is a Dungeons and Dragons book. You've heard of the role-playing game. I think it came out or got big in the late 70s, Dungeons and Dragons. You take your little fighter or magic user through the dungeons and collect points and gold and magic items. I have a lot of my original books. And talking about like Matt having dropped veils, you having dropped veils, kind of becoming a different person than you remember your old self to be, reading the Matrix code, tuning yourself off the frequency. Well, I picked this book up today, and I'll show you inside the book in just a moment. But within 5 seconds, I'm like, oh, that's just as above, so below. Within 5 seconds of picking up the book, I've looked at this book like 1,000 times since 7th grade. I used to read all about the different gods and Greek pantheon, Egyptian pantheon. I'll show you the inside in a minute. But literally, like it's like a new perception we have. You know, if I remember, I said, as it takes a bite of the shit sandwich, it must give on the other side. Like 5 seconds, like, oh, this as above, so below on the cover of Deities and Demigods. It has the god in the heavens fighting the evil god of the snake dragon. Is that the snake from the Garden of Eden? But below, the exact thing is being acted out on the Dungeons and Dragons calls it the prime material plane, or the material plane of existence, carrying the same colors that acolyte or follower of the god above, who's yielding the same orange color, is fighting a minion or acolyte or follower of the dragon god wielding the same, what a coincidence, emerald green color. It's just blatant, as above, so below. The battle going on in the heavens is being acted out below. And then you start thinking, like, those acting it out, it doesn't, this is not a free will representation. I mean, it's so blatant. Those about to battle on the ground are following the instruction or just blindly following what's going on above. But anyway, I don't want to get too deep into it. The purpose of this video is like Dungeons and Dragons. What is its main purpose? It could be very dark, but again, it's yin yang reality. It has to give back on the other side. So let's just not get too ahead of ourselves. Let me just show you what this book's all about. This Sumerian myths. This is Enlil. It goes through every single god of every single pantheon, Norse myth, American Indian myth, Japanese myth, Chinese myth. I'll show you more pages. But it ranks these gods as if you're going to play them as Dungeons and Dragons characters. Ultimately, whatever is going on here, it still has to fit within the confines of the game. So here's from the Egyptian pantheon. This is Horus. Hit points, I don't know, it says 350 or so. That's how hard he would be to kill if you're, so they have all the metrics on each god as if it's like a character. But in the text, it goes on to say, your character would have no chance of defeating any of these gods. So what's the purpose of the whole Dungeons and Dragons? Oh, this is, for those that can't see, Ishtar, Marduk, every major god is presented. And then at the back, there's all this detail about things you really could never use playing the game. The different planes of existence, how the elemental planes touch the prime material plane, how the astral plane intersects everything, the outer planes of existence, the inner planes of existence. There's just a whole lot of detail in the back. And of course, anybody's going to explain it away and say, look, Matt, the game is made by the most creative people. They know, your character is probably not going to travel between planes. All this detail, they're just having fun. And, the more we see of how this reality works, you and I would say, are they really? They have the outer planes, the seven heavens, the 666 layers of the abyss of the absolute chaotic evil, the layers of Tartarus, just a whole listing of things. And, if they are just being creative and basing it on myth, and they're going a little bit overboard, but maybe it's not quite that simple. This is how the elemental planes interact, the inner planes, sandwiched by the positive material plane, the ethereal plane, the elemental planes, the negative material plane. All this detail, and I'm not even showing you the text that goes along with this. Okay, let me show you some of the text. Appendix 1, the known planes of existence. I'll read for a moment and then I'll tell you what my theory is potentially on all of this. There exists an infinite number of parallel universes and planes of existence in the fantastic, quote, multiverse of advanced Dungeons and Dragons, or AD&D. All of these, quote, worlds coexist, but how real each is depends entirely upon the development of each campaign reference. Campaign is like you with your dungeon master going out and invading a dungeon. The charts and explanations which follow show only the various planes tied to that of normal existence. The parallel universes are not shown, and their existences might or might not be actual. Then it goes on. The inner planes, the prime material plane, very similar to how the Lord of the Rings positions Inner Earth, Midgard, things like that. Okay, this is just a few pages into Deities and Demigods. Just out of the blue, without any caption, shows a guy who's, a puppet master over this Dungeons and Dragons character. Has no... He's playing the game, there's the dice, whatever, but it is, I always found this a little strange, and I see it a little bit differently now. Anyway, the point is, guys, let me try to present the point. What is Dungeons and Dragons to the normie, to the person sailing on the ship of fools, and how do potentially we see what it might be? So the normie, again, would say, you guys always see conspiracy people seeing shit that's not there. Was it apophenia? You see shit that's not really there, trying to make a big deal out of nothing. It's just fun. In the 70s, they created this role-playing game. This is the normie would say this, of course. Were they going to play Monopoly their whole lives? Did people even have the Atari 2600 and that piece of shit in 75 or 6 or whenever this came out? Matt, it's just fun. You can't play war with cards all the time. It was the next evolution of games. Just creativity, fun. You guys are making it into something. That's all they would see it, of course. Now, potentially, what really is it? Potentially. But the more I think about this, and I think you'll nod your head as I potentially present this, the best way to do it is like the creepy meeting in the back of the Eyes Wide Shut party. It's like, well, how can we expand our power? We're kind of out of ideas. This solid gold thing and putting these shows on TV ain't working. Yeah, you in the back? You've got a suggestion? Okay, stand up. Well, sir, you've talked about many times how we need these people to expand our power. We're limited here, right? Well, that's right. That's right. We need them. So how could we get them? And who's them? Oh, them is the most creative people, sir, on this plane of existence. The ones most connected to soul, spirit, and powers that we can't quite get to. We can get them to build and finish our bridge. We can get them to build out our realm, our power structure, create this plane of existence the way we want, or at least have power feedback upon us so we can then do more ourselves. How are we going to get the most creative people here in this plane of existence to work for us? For us? Here's how we do it. We create this role-playing game, and the most creative people, the strongest spirits, the Carol Anns, will seek it out. They'll actually seek it out and pay for it. And then they'll get their dice and they'll roll their platonic solids and they'll pretend they're both good and evil characters, and they'll live their lives in a sense through their character. And many will be evil, and many will be clerics, and many will be magic users, and many will serve evil gods, and they'll breathe life back into the ancient pantheons, and they will actually deliver back to us exactly what we need. And wait, what? The most powerful souls and spirits and creative, imaginative entities on this plane of existence are going to adopt this game that in some way is going to help us build out our own power feedback loops? Yes. And they'll pay for it. We'll call it Dungeons and Dragons. They'll pretend they're evil magic users and they'll do all sorts of weird shit in the game. And then ultimately that helps us. See that? Whoa! What's your name back there? Little George Soros. Little George Soros. You're in accounting, aren't you? Yeah. Well, you're going to fast track through this organization, Little George Soros. How would you like to manage the finances for all of Europe and be responsible for collapsing currencies. You just gave us basically the greatest idea we've ever heard, little George Soros. Now, the old guard generally follows what I'm saying here. If you're not following me, I'll summarize it in more basic sense at the end. But look at all these details presented in this Deities and Demigods book. Planes of existence. What is all this detail for? You can't even use this stuff in playing the game. You really can't. You can't just... It doesn't tell you as a character how to move between planes. I mean, what is all this for? You know, is this need to be here under the guise of a game? You see what I'm saying? So let's just read some. Divine Ascension. You know, what's this doing in here? As study of the various mythologies will show, it's remotely possible for mortals to ascend into the ranks of the divine. However, there are certain requirements that must be fulfilled before such a thing that could happen. First, the character in question must have advanced to an experience level that is significantly above and beyond the average level, blah, blah. Of course, it always comes back to a game. But, you know, so if you get killed off in Keep on the Borderlands, a basic dungeon, you know, or you go to, you know, Vault of the Dow or whatever, 10th level, you're going to try to work with your dungeon master to have a divine ascension. It's like, it's not ever going to happen in the game. It's just like, well, what's the point of all this information? It's like they embedded all this, quote, occult information into these books. And if anybody, you know, for their own purposes, to have quantum creative beings do something for them, but if anybody, it's the perfect guise or disguise. If anybody asks, well, it's just a game. Where are you going with this? Look what this conspiracy jerk is saying. It's just a game. It's all for fun. He's talking about having real creative souls and spirits actually empower their systems. This guy, either sit down and roll your dice or we'll call the white coat. See, it's so perfectly hidden in plain sight, potentially what this is. And I just sniff how this reality system works. I don't know exactly how they could use this, but I do know you just return to the basics. With Izzo and talking with others in terms of what we have in common, you know, people come to me and say, well, what do we have in common? You know, how come we can see through all the fraud and deception? And is it because we don't have smart TVs? No, this person over here has a smartphone. I don't. I have a 15-year-old, it's probably like 12-year-old flip phone. Barely gets a text. I'm not joking. It's people used to laugh at me, but now they think it's like vintage. They're like, well, let me see that. But I have a smart TV. We all have different things. It's not that. You know what it is? What we have in common? If I had to pick one thing, I've mentioned it recently, imagination. If I had to pick one thing that we all have, anybody listening to this that can see through the fraud, that can see that, you know, what's going on with the flight out of Kabul is just kind of like what Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage, is an absolute joke. Anybody that can see through it, I guarantee there's almost nobody here that'd be like, I didn't have any creative ability as a kid. I didn't imagine anything as a kid. I think that's what we all had in common. All right, what's the point of all this detail? I'll read some of this. Astral travel in combat. Astral travel is possible by various means, including magic spells, it says magic items, and psionic discipline or psychic discipline. The astral plane touches the endless prime-material planes. It's endless layers. It talks about layer over layer, like Bandersnatch of planes of existence. Inside, they kind of present it as the snow globe. Inside the prime-material plane is endless layers of Buddha reincarnation, endless layers of Bandersnatch, where it doesn't matter if that's from Black Mirror, Colin flies off the side of the building or not. It's just another one of them just goes on. But inside, you know, this material plane, inside the snow globe, the idea is to how to break out of the snow globe, but that's for another video. So what is all this detail for? But then you have the as above, so below in the cover. I'll show that again in a minute. The first page you turn to is the battle of the heavens, the certain set of gods against another set of gods. And, you know, look, what is all this detail for? Because no dungeon master that oversees people rolling their dice and going through little dungeons is ever going to use this stuff. There is no dungeon at even the highest of levels where it talks about using psionic abilities or traveling between planes, and no dungeon master is going to incorporate this. So, it was this Deities and Demigods book came out probably 4 or 5 years after Dungeons and Dragons got really popular with sixth graders, seventh graders, eighth graders, 10th graders, high school kids. It came out, it would be really weird to put it out first. It came out later when people were ready to dive into it, and people were potentially ready to build their bridges out for them, if you see what I'm saying. So there's a section in the back here. Every single deity in the book is listed, their sphere of control, their animal of choice, how they're all sorts of things and details about the clerics or acolytes that worship them, how to even put the helm on your head. If you're an acolyte or follower of a certain god, it says here, put on a clay helm, put on a gold cap for another god. And then on the body, wear a jade belt, it says, for this one god. It said the holy days here for this god is the quarter moon. Sacrifices monthly. On this god, it says varies for sacrifices. The form of sacrifice, hands or claws, golden objects, favors for another god, humans for another god, jewelry for another god. Mental draining is listed as a sacrifice for another god. This is interesting. We should go through some of these. Burnt offering, other valuables, precious items, beautiful objects, blood, enemies, burnt humans, enemies and riches, hearts. One god requires hearts. So it just goes on. And place of worship, underground, anywhere. You can worship anywhere. A temple needs a temple, an underground temple required for this one. So, look, how the creative spirits here, the most creative people, are being used to build out their bridge, I don't know. It's past my pay grade. I'm just good at sniffing it out and reading the Matrix code and getting, ideas from emails and smarter people than me that will put it in the comments. I can sniff the fart in the elevator. I can't always tell you who did it. I usually can't tell you who did it. I'm just the first one that smells the fart. All right, let's back up for a minute or two. For those that know nothing about Dungeons and Dragons, I'll bring you up to speed very quickly, then we'll continue. This is a Dungeons and Dragons module called Against the Giants. And each module is like a dungeon or a scenario, a little mini booklet. So you take your character, Dungeons and Dragons maybe played with 4 people. There's a dungeon master that says, okay, you're about to go around a corner and there's a door. Do you want to go in? Yeah, I want to go in. Oh, inside is 3 hill giants and now they're attacking you. So you have to defend yourself. And, the guy next to you, your 7th grade friend, might have a magic user and he's going to cast spells. And as you go through these rooms and these scenarios, you get the gold and you get the magic items and, etc. It's not, on the face of it, it is not complicated. But if you can make it complicated. There's endless books and reference materials. You can make it as complicated as you want. But when you roll the dice, whether you cast your spell or you try to strike with your sword, all these, the platonic solids, they're called, every single dice, every single plutonic solid, tetrahedron, whatever, is represented in a different Dungeons and Dragons dice. And, what's the reason for this? Do you really need every single plutonic solid represented in your dice? By the way, you're looking at the cover of the Dungeon Master's Guide. It's not like a satanic spell book, or maybe it is, but I'll show you the book a little bit later. So how these plutonic solids are used in the occult, and I don't know. That's beyond my pay grade. I don't want to know. I'm just saying, is it just a coincidence? Probably not. Plutonic solids relate to Pythagoras and Plato, the building blocks of the universe. Are we building out their bridge when we played this game? That sort of theme. So inside the player's handbook here, it just shows a fictitious scenario of a fighter, but not in a dungeon. This fighter's like in the depths of hell. I just decided to take a picture of this page. There are modules where you can take your character into the depths of hell. So it's just an odd, this is the one image they show next to the fighter page, a guy fighting in the depths of hell. And there's all sorts of rule books, mini rule books, players' handbooks, monsters guides. I mean, it's just, I don't know how many books there are. It's almost too much to count. Different rule packages. This is the full Dungeon Master's Guide. And this is, I don't think it's it's not a demon or a devil. I always thought it was a demon. I think, well, it could be a form of, I think it's called an Efreet or something, or a Freety. I don't know. That was like a big trivia question when we were playing this in 7th grade. I don't know if I'm getting that right, but it doesn't matter. Bottom of the player's handbook, compiled information, blah, 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 by Gary Gygax. Who's this Gary Gygax? It's like, what's that, Weird Science? Who's this Gary character? He's your son. Player's handbook, endless books. So here, this is the Dungeon Master's Guide and the Player's Handbook. So the two staples, the two most famous books. They show thieves stealing a jewel out of the eye of some, who knows what, demon character. So guys, there's a lot to be said here, that this game, of course, could be just a little bit more going on than just fun. You see what I mean? Without a doubt, the most important thing with Dungeons and Dragons, this is a theme through video games even today, anything, but without a doubt, your whole existence in playing Dungeons and Dragons revolves around you taking your character and leveling it up, making it more powerful. And in the player's handbook for the magic users or spellcasters, they have how many experience points or gold points you need for each level. You know, it's all about getting to the next level. And they have a name. I always thought this was really cool as a kid, how they have a special name for each level. So the first level magic user doesn't have more than 2 spells, is called, I can't even pronounce it, Prestidigitator. But then second level, you become an evoker, then a conjurer, then a thurgist, whatever, a thaumaturgist, I don't know what it is. But then you become a magician, an enchanter. Level 8 is a warlock. Level 9 is a sorcerer. Level 10 is a necromancer. I think necromancy might have something to do with raising the dead, but I'm no expert. Level 11 is wizard, and then you go wizard 12th level, wizard 13th level, wizard 4th, all the way up to whatever you could make it to. But it's not that dissimilar to video games. Getting to the next level, leveling up. That scene from Jarhead. You know what happens when you get to that 10th level of Metroid? What? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. There's some truth drop right there. Remember that scene in Jarhead when they're flying to Afghanistan? No, flying to Iraq. First Gulf War I. Miss, can you come warm up my nuts? Sorry, warm nuts. She was handing out peanuts. They took a TWA over, of course. Sorry. So it's all about leveling up. And again, what's being said here? It's getting you to work hard so you level up a basically like a straw man, basically like a legal, not a legal fiction, but you know what I mean, working hard to push forward and push up a character that's not you. Like, what about yourself? I just want to show you the one for the thieves table. Rogue level 1, then a footpad. Level 3 is a cut purse, then a robber, a burglar, a filcher, a sharper, a magsman, a thief, and then a master thief, 10th level and above. So you'd be like 18th level master thief, 20th level. These make more sense, and these are actually pronounceable, unlike the magic user table. Okay, for the summary section, which could take a while, is there anything that we may have learned about what Dungeons and Dragons may be? I think most smart people here were probably, I know the way we all think alike, you're probably saying, yeah, I can see that's probably what this thing is being used for. And that's not like going out on a limb. Whatever you say they use real people, real creative spirits every single day, every minute of every day to build out their perverted bridge, to build out the reality system that they want. They use us, they need us. They do it every day. So it's not a stretch saying this is what Dungeons and Dragons is at all. It probably was, how they used real creative beings. It probably was on like mega steroids, but they use this every day. We know that. Consciousness came first. The physical followed. There was no big bang that started everything. If science and academia presents this, then you just take the opposite. So the best way to figure out if we can use anything is to go back to the absolute basics. I'm always talking about this reality system as a snow globe. And what's interesting to me, as I was thinking about this just a moment ago, there's a lot of smart people that email me, interact with comments. Nobody's ever come to me and said, Matt, stop using snow globe. It's completely inappropriate. Nobody. Therefore, it confirms this is a closed system. And if we weren't sure, you just take what science presents, the Carl Sagans, and everything's infinite, and this solar systems and the galaxies go on for billions and trillions, and you just take the opposite. Well, if that's what Carl Sagan says, and Neil deGrasse Tyson says, he's just arrived, flew into a new city. The first thing he asked Siri for is where the Krispy Kreme is. Then when you take the opposite, you just do the opposite. Then we know it's a closed system, and then your inner knowing tells you it's a closed system. If there are any metrics or measurements or experiments that show it has characteristics of being infinite, it's probably because it curves back in on itself, like a toroidal, whatever. You know what I'm talking about. Like a toroid. Is that a word? It curves back in on itself. That would create the impression with the limited senses it's infinite. It would be a mobile avenue, which is an anagram for limbo, Matrix 3. Will Matrix 4 be a prequel and it'll confuse the numbers like the Star Wars? No, Matrix 3, he's stuck, remember, in that train man, the netherworld between the Matrix and the Machine City. Lil Sati's like, you must be Neo. He's trying to run out one side, but he just comes right back in the other, just like Pac-Man. He tries to run out. Pac-Man goes out one side, just comes right back in. Pac-Man's like, fuck, I'm trying to get out of here. I'm right back where I started, just like Neo. So that appears infinite to him, but he's in this little train man construct. If this reality system appears to be infinite, it's just because it probably folds back in on itself like Neo stuck in Mobile Avenue, but whatever. So we all deep down sense this is a closed system. And one of the keys is to find a way out. We have differing opinions upon death, how hard or easy that will be, what needs to be done or what doesn't need to be done to get out. We'll talk about that some other time. But we also, agree. I haven't talked about this specifically with too many people, but whenever I've presented this idea or concept, people have usually come back and supported it. Not too many smart people have ever come back saying, Matt, stop saying that. That's completely off. And the concept is that we feel intuitively and instinctively we have a way out. Okay, maybe they're going to try to trap us, bring us back. I don't want to turn this video into Saturn Moon Matrix or anything like that, but we're in this closed system now. We're inside the snow globe Parthenon, in this snow globe, and whatever. That's fine. Hey, great. Whatever. Enjoy smoke them while you got them. But there's a way out for us. Whether they're going to try to trap us or not. But the point is, I was going to say, the minions. We do feel instinctively the minions, or whatever stands behind the screen here, or is localized. It's localized to the snow globe, whether it be Melvin P, whatever he is, or something much higher up than Melvin P, or whatever animates the screen, or whatever is constantly trying to lay down the reality trick and deception to keep a human being from understanding itself. We do feel instinctively that there are way more trapped here, or totally trapped here. Do I know that? I have no basis for that other than two things: inner knowing, observing for many, many years how they operate, and the smartest people that you can find anywhere had the opportunity over many, many years to come to me and say, Matt, stop saying that these minions are more trapped here. I can't say, like a Tony would disagree. He'd say they have the opportunity to spiritually get where you are, Matt, or anybody listening to this. Melvin P is a big fish in a small pond. He dominates here. But if you back up far enough spiritually, he's way lower than you. You're like a full hobbit, and he's like Schmeagol. If you back up far enough and look down, it just, from the metrics and basis of this reality system, he appears greater. If you rise up and look down, he's like, my precious. He's like a snivering little, snivering, is that a word? Whatever. So they appear to be big fish, but it's big fish in a small pond. These people are a joke. So I think most of you, and you have agreed with me over the years, we have a way out, and these minions are way, way more trapped here. So when we've talked about why are they always in our face, why they're always in our business, why are they always getting us to put our attention and energy into what they want, covet what they want, I mean, it seems just obvious that they need us, right? I mean, something here needs us. Like, it sounds hokey and new agey. We talk about creative beings and we're quantum creators and all that, but the facts line up. It seems to be the case. It doesn't seem like they can, if they could do it all themselves, then why are they always, is it just about Loosh? It's just about feeding. Why are they always getting in our business to get us to create for them, to put energy into what they want? It's not always putting energy into themselves. It's into their own systems. It's like building out their bridge, a really way out theory as to why they're always pushing space, whether it be Jeff Bezos or what they presented in 1969. Now, all of a sudden, they're dusting off Richard Branson and his spaceport and that nonsense. One of the weird theories that I floated a long time ago, and it's weird and it's way out there, I know, but I'm not going to take it off the table, is, they are like trapped in the snow globe. And the more, if enough conscious beings can actually completely believe that you can just get out that way, it's almost like they're expanding their territory out, like that movie, The 13th Floor, at the end of the plane of existence. I don't remember the movie much, but it's just like it just breaks down the code. It's all zeros and ones at the end of the plane of existence. There's that Michael Moorcock Elric book, and at the end of existence is just pure chaos outside the window. It's almost like the more they can convince us that all this space stuff is real, it's almost like maybe we can actually build it out for them to a degree. I don't take anything like that off the table. So the facts are they use us every day, 1,000 times a day, to put energy into the things that they want. So why would Dungeons and Dragons be any different? It's just, I don't think we'll ever get to the bottom as to how all these creative people and beings like me and you playing it as a kid, what they got out of it. But the more I think of it, I don't think it's a stretch at all to saying that's exactly what the game is for. But maybe you might think it's a stretch. And if you do, I'll just return to a figure like this. What are all these details for? At the end of Deities and Demigods, a book that leads with the as above, so below, talking about how the planes of existence intersect with the ethereal, the astral, the elemental realms. Think how many, what tens of thousands of kids in this, eventually turning into hundreds of thousands over the 80s and the 90s, hundreds of thousands of the most creative people in the world. And, we could argue some other time, do those creative people have a brighter light or a better connection to spirit? But all these creative people, let's just say they have incredible imagination. Every single one of them, of how many ever thousands dove into this, as I used to just read through these books. Never played any Dungeons and Dragons at this level, but I just would read and fantasize. And how did, in any way, maybe it failed, maybe it didn't help them. But what was the goal of all of this? Why present this level of detail in this Deities and Demigods book? Again, every plan or plot that whoever they are, put forth doesn't mean it all has to work, or even 1% of it needs to work. Maybe they're like, hey, we're going to try to get the most creative people here to build us a bridge out of here. I don't know. And it's a long shot, but let's put this Dungeons and Dragons game out, and even if it does only one thing of the 5 things that we want it to do for us, it's a win, right? We'll still put the Dungeons and Dragons game out. We still have like thousands of kids living through their fake avatar and like their straw man, which is like this real evil character slaughtering and murdering. We get a lot out of that anyway. But best case scenario, they could like build a bridge out of here for us. Because just imagine astral travel. And look, guys, who knows? I'm not taking off the table. Guys, to close, I came across this. It's not directly related, but I just wanted to mention this briefly. I saw this. It reminded me of what Christoph said a year ago at Uncanny Deduction about the truth always wins. He's like, no, it doesn't. So here it says, 3 things cannot be long hidden: the sun, the moon, the truth, from Siddhartha Gautama Buddha. If I'm pronouncing that correctly, I apologize if I'm not. For anybody that's a Buddhist takes offense, because I completely disagree with what's being presented here, especially depends on your definition of the word long. How do you know this was said by this Buddha? That's offensive to Buddha. Well, how do you know it was said by Buddha? So the system itself that controls everything would be incapable of putting a system quote and attaching it to a respected individual like Buddha. The system, the George Bush system, would just be incapable of doing this. How do you know Buddha said it? You see the problem? Yeah. So it doesn't matter. I'm going to argue with the statement. I'm not trying to pick a fight with a Buddha or whatever. So calm down. The statement's wrong. Okay. But the system loves to put this out, in my opinion. Truth always prevails, like Christoph says. No, it doesn't. 3 things cannot be long hidden. The sun, well, that's true. Yeah, the clouds eventually, and their wemmy trails eventually clear out. The moon, yeah, eventually you'll see it again. The truth, no. Our entire lifetimes, every record we have from ancestors, every record we can rely on, written record we can rely on, which is very few we have left, the truth can be hidden and has been hidden for forever, as long back as we have any record from our ancestors. It's always been hidden. So this is wrong. Of course it's wrong. If you had ancestors that lived in the shadow of King Arthur's castle, it was called Nottingham, whatever, and you lived under a lord or a noble or William the Longshanks, that's William Wallace, he was fighting King Longshanks, and was farming or sharecropping, you're living, that person, everybody's always lived under lies. The truth has never come out. It's never. That's what's so unnatural about this system. The truth of what real freedom is, what a human being really is, how to self-actualize without materialism and coveting what the system, the little grains and seeds it puts in each person's palm that they should covet. You shall covet what I give you, the system has always said to the human being. And the human being has always groveled before the system. So this is wrong. 3 things cannot be long hidden. If let's say it did come from a certain Buddha, whatever, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm at a podium and Buddha's at a podium. I would say, well, you say the truth can't be long hidden. Can you say one bit of truth that was completely exposed to the masses where the masses accepted it in our lifetime or any lifetime going back as far as my most ancient ancestor? Just anything that's ever come out. I'll wait. I'll wait for your response. Yeah, not much or nothing. So, it depends on the definition of long. If the person I was debating said, well, all this truth came out in the Egyptian. That's why there's no Egyptian culture, just the pyramids. The truth came to them and they just morphed out of the game. They won. Or pre-Diluvian flood or something, the Lemurians or whatever, this and that, certain groups obtained the truth and they just won the game. They morphed out of here. Well, that's great. I'm glad that happened for those civilizations, if that's what the person was presenting to me. And I certainly keep that on the table. Why there's no history of the culture that built the pyramid of the sun and the moon in Mexico. No history whatsoever of the culture that built the pyramids in Egypt. Don't tell me about King Tut's tomb and stuff like that. For the most part, the cultures that build these monoliths, there's no evidence of it. So I like to think one possibility is that they did come upon the truth and then they just morphed out of here. They won. Like winning a video game. What happens when you get to the 10th level of Metroid? If you actually have the truth and bring the truth on your community, nothing happens. You morph out of here. You win. I'd like to keep that on the table. But if it happened pre-Diluvian, I can't speak to that. You're using the word long. Every single ancestor going back through recorded history, there is no truth that's ever come out. So sorry, this is wrong. Okay, I'll give you the sun and the moon. Eventually, I'll see them. The system loves those sort of quotes. The truth will always win. It will always come out. The system loves it because it's always just dangling the carrot in front of people. If we just organize one more rally, the truth will come out. If we can just fight it, fight the power that be. Elvis was a hero to most. If we just organize one more time, eventually the truth must win. See, you can see why the system would love that. It's no disrespect to Buddha. The system will take that and assign that sort of hopeful quote to all sorts of different entities and things and people and that people look up to, of course. You say, well, no, in this reality system, the truth doesn't win. It hasn't, there's no record of it ever winning. So I'm not going to look outside myself and keep trying to fight the screen for the truth. I'm going to worry about yourself. I want to take care of myself. I'm going to find the truth in myself, because the way it's always posited is the truth will come out and the masses and everybody will wake up. That's a false breadcrumb chase. I know it sounds selfish. Remember that scene in Remember the Titans, top right? Nobody blocks, nobody plays for the team. And Julius is like, no, nobody plays, because the black players don't get along with the white players at this point. It's like, I'm going to get mine. I'm going to look out for me. I'm going to get mine. And then Gary Bertier's like, man, that's the worst attitude I ever heard. And then Julius is like, leadership reflects on you, Captain, or something like that. Anyway, it sounds selfish, but this ain't football. The object here, I'm telling you, the object here is not to recruit everybody where eventually we can get our fleet of pickup trucks and we can go get the arrests and we can go take Hillary to jail and we can go get those sealed indictments and just we can rework the systems, the perverted systems they put in place. We can rework it for good and truth, justice, the American way. No, the reality game is to take care of your spiritual self.